Okay, I'm going to do a quick, demonstration of using inheritance for a weapon system. Now, I've pre-baked a couple of things into my game here to make it so that I can do this in a reasonable amount of time. Hopefully, I don't lose anyone along the way because it's definitely a bit more of an advanced topic. So you remember our little hero character here, and let me change one thing in the script first. I'm going to say, all right, let's start off with the normal behavior. So our normal behavior was that we would start off and we have our coin shooting kind of thing going on here. And that's our normal coin shooter kind of thing. So the first thing I did is I said, okay, now what I wanted to do is remove the weapon stuff from the hero here. So if you've been following along, you probably saw that normally inside the update function was where it was doing things like, tracking where the mouse was and deciding to shoot, that sort of thing. Okay, so all the weapon stuff was handled in the hero routine, in the hero class, in its update routine, and a little bit around. It had some coroutines and support functions, things like that. So what I first did is I said, all right, let's create this sort of standard weapon class. So I created another class, a weapon.cs, which contained all the weapon functionality. So anything that used to be in hero class that has to do with the weapon is now in here. And weapon does still inherit from mono behavior because it needs like the start routine, and it needs coroutines, and it needs an update routine, an update function, and so on. So it needs all that. So it is derived from a mono behaviors, but now it's called weapon. All right. So now weapon has the things that it did. It has shots, number of shots. It has a coin prefab. It has the last time it shot, bullet speed, so on. Everything should look sort of familiar. It has this cooldown function which limits the number, the number of shots I can have. Right. It says okay. Eventually over the course of time it allows more shots. So if I've maxed out shots, this will come back down again. And it has, the main thing is this update function. And what the update function does is it is the one that is determining where the mouse is. It's tracking the mouse, gets the mouse position, and then figures out the direction between the hero, the object we're on. It finds the rotator on there, and it calculates this direction, right? It has this direction that it calculates from there. So direction equals mouse pause minus the current transform dot position. That gives me a vector pointing that direction, and it also has a little rotator that it can rotate around there. But anyway, that's the important part. It gets direction here. And then it says, okay, if the button down, if there's been a button pressed, the fire button, and actually, I don't need to calculate any of this stuff now that I think about it. I don't have to calculate any of that unless a button has been pressed. So when I do this, I'll say Control X, and I will say in here, all right, that's going to be a little bit more efficient because now I'm not doing that unless I'm really in a position to. So saying, all right, if the fire button has been pressed, and there are fewer than 5 shots that are live, I am allowed to instantiate another bullet, instantiate another thing. So, or at least I'm allowed to fire. I'm allowed to fire. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to calculate that direction, right? And I may rotate my indicator if I have an indicator. I will calculate direction, and I will say, okay, shoot in that direction. Shoot in that direction, and then calculate number of shots. Now, shoot is a separate function up here for a very important reason. Now, shoot is declared to be a protected virtual void, and it's shoot and it takes a direction. Now, it's protected because I am going to say, well, I want other versions of weapons that are going to use all this standard stuff, use all the aiming stuff and the button and so on, but they may substitute in their own or their additional shoot functionality. So I declare this to be protected virtual void shoot. And then I do what normally would be done in shooting. So game object temp, instantiate a coin. If I'm allowed to kind of turbo shoot if I've double clicked, and then it destroys any shots it's fired, and so on. Okay, so that's the normal behavior. So my weapon here is still doing the normal thing. Now the question is, how will a weapon wind up on my hero? I could drag and drop. I could drag a new, let's see, my hero here. I could drag a new script over here for that weapon, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to use something we covered in class lecture a little bit. And during the start of the hero function, I'm going to actually add a component to the hero. Okay? We'll say weapon. And I should probably call that my weapon, just to be safe. My weapon. My weapon. Okay. So the first thing the hero does is the hero says, all right, create a weapon and add it to this game object, or the game object that this is on here. So the hero will immediately say, okay, transform.gameObject.add component, and it will add a weapon to this game object. And the one other thing it will do is, because we know that that component is going to need a coin prefab, right? That's the one bit that we want to give it, because now we'll just say, that the coin prefab has been set up here like it used to be. But we're going to say my weapon.coinPrefab equals coin prefab, right? So we've added the component, we've initialized the coin prefab, which is the bullet kind of thing, and then it should just work like normal. And sure enough, as long as I haven't broken anything in the meantime, which I did, okay, weapon does not contain, what does this here? Oh, okay, my weapon. Let me get rid of this version over here. That was just junk, so we don't care about that one actually. Save that again. Sorry, that's what I get for reusing stuff. All right, so, and now things work pretty much like they used to. And if I can manage to not get killed by these NPCs here. Wow, a lot of aggressive NPCs going on here. All right, so things work fairly normal like they used to. All right. Now, I want to create an uber weapon. I want to create something much cooler than that, but I want to go ahead and use this. Oh, that's kind of cool. See this right here? That rotator? It's only rotating to indicate the last shot. So that's because of the way that I did that thing. Only if the button is pressed does that rotator get rotated. It used to like follow the mouse around all the time, but now it only does it when a shot is fired. So that's one thing I didn't really intend to do, but it worked out that way. Right? That's happening because in my weapon, the rotator here, this is this rotator, that's my little ion stone, whatever it is, that only gets rotated when the button is pressed. So, good enough. We'll leave that there for now. All right, so I'm going to create an uber weapon. All right, so I create another script called weapon2.cs. Okay, now weapon2, I want it to do all that same normal stuff that the other weapon does. I want it to do all the aiming. I want to take advantage of all those things, right? The other script said, it had this setup stuff. It has the cooldown thing. All that kind of stuff is normal. I want that. But I want to add the uber weapon stuff. So what I do is I say, all right, this new public class weapon2 inherits from the weapon class. Right? So the normal weapon stuff is there, and that's what it's going to get called here. And the only thing I actually want to change is my shoot method. Okay, so I declare this to be protected override void shoot. And everything is the same, except now it is protected override. Now, I'll be honest with you. The virtual and the override, they're sort of optional. That's actually a new C++ 11 and up thing. There are ways, you've probably noticed when we were doing like on collision and start and all that, we haven't had to declare override and virtual and so on. And inheritance can be done without override and without virtual, but it's better practice to use virtual and override just to make sure, because if you try to override something that didn't have a function to begin with, then it will give you, you'll throw an error, right? So it's going to be some better kind of error management and code management, things like that. If you do these kind of things, it's going to make sure your code is clean and that you haven't accidentally created some function that doesn't exist and you're not overriding one and so on. Anyway, so I say protected, override, void, shoot. So now this is going to be the new shoot routine, okay? And the first thing that this new shoot routine is going to do is it's going to call the same old shoot routine, this base.shoot, and pass it the direction. So that's going to do the exact same thing as the old shoot routine did. I have to do that because I am overriding this. If I didn't override this, it would not do that functionality. It would only do my new functionality. So I'm using base.shoot to make sure I am doing the old shoot as well. But then on top of that, here's the uber weapon part. I want to say, okay, for int I equals 0 to I less than 4, so I'm going to have 4 more projectiles here. And these projectiles I am going to instantiate according to, they're all going to start off at the same position, just like they normally would, but their velocities are going to be at 90-degree angles. So I'm going to have these 4 that shoot out left, right, up, and down. Okay. And the way I rotate them is the nice thing about doing a rotation, it's just the same thing as multiplying it by this other vector here. So I take the right vector, which is the vector that just points along that axis, the x in the x direction here, and then I rotate it around by the z, along the z-axis here. So it goes 0, 1, 2, 3. Kind of forms that plus there. All right, so what happens? How do I get that to happen? Okay, there, save, I play. Obviously, nothing's going to change. I haven't changed anything yet, right? So how now do I get my weapon 2 to be called? It's actually pretty simple. In here, in the hero function, where I used to say, all right, give me a weapon, I could now say, well, give me a weapon 2. If I save that, now I get this new weapon that shoots in the direction that I want it to, plus gives me those uber weapon kind of extra coins being shot out there. So I can do some serious mayhem damage here when I go into town. I'm just so that's the deal. That's what I did. So if I wanted to, I could do, further, I could create, weapon types, and I could even change this in my code, because I can always, remove a component, add a new component, add a weapon, a normal weapon, add weapon 2. I can even do things like my upcasting and downcasting if I needed to refer to anything that's in the weapon, so I wanted to actually configure it. But that's the basic idea of inheritance, right? So I can create, in this case, a more, powerful uber weapon, but still have all the functionality just, created once here in my standard weapon. So I could even do, I could create other weapons that did that same thing. Maybe these next ones, they don't just fire coins out. Maybe they shoot some other kind of thing at other different angles or in more starbursts or something like that, and going on. And I don't have to reinvent that whole, the cooldown and all that kind of stuff. And the nice thing is that the cooldown and stuff, I could even change that. It'll automatically be updated, right? So that's a quick installment today on a practical or a real-world use of inheritance, and additionally that added bonus of using the add component to add components on the fly. Okay, hope that is helpful for fun things. Take care. Have a great weekend.